Hi, it's Geoff and Lauren here from discoverdouble-bass.com. Thanks for joining us for another one of these episodes of Ask Geoff and Lauren. We're here to answer your double bass related questions. And if you have one, you can join us in the comments below this video. Okay, we're going to get straight into it today. Lauren, I've got a question here from Bill. He says, I've got another idea for a lesson. What's your top 5 recommended books, i.e. Samandal, Nanny, etc., and why? And he also wants to know if we have a music theory book to recommend. But let's start off. I'm going to do a couple of jazz ones, and I'm going to give you my top recommended jazz bass book, which is called The Jazz Bass Book by John Goldsby. And I absolutely love it. It's just terrific. It's got some fantastic transcriptions in there. If anybody is interested in jazz bass, it's also got some great written articles about the bass players, and it's without doubt my number 1 recommendation for a jazz bass book. So how about you on the classical side of things then? What have you got going on?
Well, my number 1 that I would recommend, I guess there are 2.
Go on. Yeah, well, you can give me 5. So, I mean, Bill's asking for 5. So
yeah, right. I have a lot that I use. One that I really love are all of the George Vance books. I use those I use those in my teaching all the time for beginners all the way through intermediate. There's 3 books, I believe, and then he also has a technique book called Vade Mecum, I think is how you pronounce it. But anyway, the actual progressive repertoire books is what they're called. Those are really great because they start you off in how to set up the bass, how to hold the instrument, and they give you all these really great little melodies to work through and advance your technique. So those are really good to have when you're first starting out and when you get into the more intermediate levels. Another one that I really love is one from my teacher, Jeff Raditich. He's got a couple books, and I don't know, I can't remember if the technique exercises is a part of his bigger book. I'm drawing a blank on what that's called
It's called Double Bass, The Ultimate Challenge.
The Ultimate Challenge, right?
That's when I saw that book name, I was like, I have to buy this book,
I know. Wow. It's a great book. And actually, fun fact, if I can
go on, give me a fun fact, yeah.
My boyfriend is in that book.
Is he? Is there a picture of him?
Yeah, there is.
Oh,
He's wearing some really fancy tennis shoes.
Oh.
And it's on the section about the Laborie or the bent end pin, because that's what he was using at the time. So my boyfriend is famous.
Oh, I'll go.
But anyway, that's a great book for any skill level, and the technique exercises are just excellent. I talk about them a lot in my lessons, and I give them to my students because they're really great for the left and the right hand. So those are my top 2.
What about Petrarchy? What's it? The thumb position book. That's pretty good.
I learned from that one when I was studying with Doug Summer when I was living back in Atlanta. That was my first introduction to thumb position, and that's a great book. Another one. Have you heard of the Rabath scale book?
There's the 3 volumes of the Rabath method
There are those, but there's one that's just completely on scales. I don't know, to be honest, if it's a part of the 3-book method, but this one, it's like every single scale you can possibly think of. Although it doesn't include as many scales as yours does.
Yes.
But it's like basically all the major and possibly minor scales.
Basically the ones you'd want.
Yeah. Yours are important too, though. They're really important. But he gives you like 10 or 15 different fingering combinations for each scale and arpeggio. And the way that it's laid out is really cool. And every scale takes like 2 hours to get through. So, and I heard a rumor, I need some confirmation on this, but I heard a rumor that that's what the students at Rice are made to do for their warm-ups every day is one scale. So anyway, that's a really good one. I went through that one and I really loved it.
Really? Is the George Vance stuff, just stepping back a second, is that based on the Rabath method as well?
It is.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, it's. I don't know how much involvement Rabath had in it, but George Vance, I believe, was a student of Rabath. So it's based on the Rabath method. Another one that I really have liked, and someone in your group suggested this to me, is the books by Keith Hartley. I think that's his name.
Yes, that's right. And they're published on York Music, I think, aren't they?
Or he might actually have his own publishing company, but you could be right about that. I'm not sure.
I know the name.
We're being so good at not being vague about all these, but we should link to all of these.
Yeah,
in the
I will do, absolutely.
But he's got some really great books that are they're like melodies,
Yeah.
they're similar to the George Vance books, but they don't have exercises like the George Vance books do.
Yeah.
They're just nice melodies that you find in orchestral repertoire. There's a lot of excerpts, and I like it because it goes through it comprehensively, and so you can start when you're a beginner and then
Mm.
go through all the way to when you're a more intermediate or advanced player. But it's not like Mary Had a Little Lamb, it's
That's the
like,
thing is, I find it really hard to recommend to people
yeah,
study pieces that they can practice that
yeah.
aren't that are basically below thumb position, particularly in the lower regions of the bass that don't sound like nursery rhymes. And I'm always thinking about things like the Marcello and the Vivaldi sonatas. I always recommend those because they're fun to play. But is
Yeah.
there something a bit more modern that we can use? And I don't know.
Something that I like to do with my students, especially if they're more based in jazz
Yeah.
or just not classical in general,
Mm.
I tell them to just take out their real book or find a
Yeah.
melody for a song that they really like and play it in different registers. And sometimes that
100%.
doesn't work. Like if you go to like Donna Lee, like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's maybe not the best one to start with. But Autumn Leaves is a really great
Yeah.
one. Like there's a lot of really great melodies, and I think you'll know when you start out. And these are melodies that you play all the time and that you love. And
Mm.
I think doing something like that is helpful. You don't have to rely on a method book,
Yeah.
all the time. So.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Lauren, that's fantastic. Hopefully, Bill, we've answered your. Oh, he's got an extra one. Sorry. What's the best music theory book you could recommend? The one that in jazz that people tend to use is the Mark Levine Jazz Theory book, which I quite like. There's another book on advanced music. Advanced music. I'll link to it below, which is a jazz theory book, which I probably prefer. I think it's really well written, but I can't remember the author. But in terms of theory, I don't know. Is there any musical theory books you can think of? There aren't many that jump out to my mind.
No, the one that I used when I was in high school and college,
Yeah.
that of course I can't remember the name of, is a really good one, and I'll give you the link to that
Cool.
because it's a great one. But a teacher that I studied with when I was at the University of South Carolina has a great series of jazz theory books, and I was in his jazz theory class. I played in his jazz theory string quartet. His name's Bert Ligon, and
Okay.
I think the book. Gosh, we're just really, really winning with these names right here. But I think the book is called like something like Jazz Theory Technique, something like that. We'll link to that as well. But I remember that one being great. It's got exercises in it. It's really comprehensive and really easy to understand.
Well, Lauren, thanks so much for this today because you've really given me tons to think about. You've pretty much come up with all of these ideas, and some really interesting sounding books there. So I'm going to be checking those out as well. And just because she's been so amazing, please go and check out Lauren's bowing course, which I'll provide a link for. We've been too shy to mention that. But yes, so thanks so much for joining me, Lauren. Thanks for your question, Bill. And we'll both see you in the next episode of Ask Geoff and Lauren.